Hello and welcome to the Tech Lunch Podcast, where we encourage our listeners to learn something new about tech every week. This can range from learning about new and exciting applications to the advancements in coding and technology. If you are always learning, you will always be a step above the rest. Take the time during lunch or during a break to listen and learn, kind of like a lunch and learn, but for the ears. This podcast will open the listener's ears to new and exciting technologies they may have not been purview to in the past. These topics will range from manufacturing technologies to data collection technologies and everything in between. Hello, I'm Nick.
Hey, I'm John.
And, this week we're kind of, missing Ed. And it is, the Valentine's Day week,
Yeah,
so,
true.
he's out there getting held hostage against his will. Or with his will, depending on how you're looking at it. Pretty much if you're stuck in the same situation, blink twice and we'll send somebody. So
Amber Alert.
Yeah, we'll send you an Amber Alert. How about that? Just make sure you don't wake up in the morning missing a kidney.
There you go.
If you wake up in an ice bath, you reach for a phone.
Yeah.
Not the toaster.
Call for help.
But, in all honesty, it's kind of funny that, we start dealing with, and, hopefully soon we can hear from Ed about how that competition went this past weekend.
Oh, it was last weekend. He said something about his classes were starting back up again.
Well, he's getting ready to finish them.
Oh, finish them. Oh, okay.
So, but he had that cybersecurity competition, last weekend. So we kind of want to, hear about how that went, stuff like that. So next time he's around, we'll kind of touch on that and kind of see, kind of how that went. I'm kind of curious. I'm still trying to see when they're going to start doing 3D printing competitions.
Yeah.
Engineering based on 3D printing competitions. Might be something we can start here locally.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
So might be something.
That actually is a good idea. Yeah.
Something there, Maybe if you can print it, we'll see how long it takes to destroy it.
Yeah.
So I digress. But thing is, but that brings us to this week. It's 3D printing. It's pretty much. To enclose or not to enclose. That's the main question here. Yes, that is a rip on a poet, but et tu Brute. We're getting there. So we're going down the wrong rabbit hole again.
But enclosure, like of course we're talking 3D printing. Enclosing, it is a question that comes up constantly with all. Well, mostly FDMs. I mean, actually, no, with all printers.
All printers
because my resin printer, my SLS printer needs to be enclosed as well. It even has a sensor that, it won't, it's like a cutoff. It'll stop when it recognizes that, that top piece is off.
Yeah, that leads me to a bigger question. If we think that if almost all printers are impacted by the enclosure thing, how does that work with deltas?
Delta's a different animal. It's got its own room. The Delta printers are crazy to me because I don't think I've ever seen a Delta printer enclosed.
Yeah, neither have I.
And they're printing pretty well.
And they're printing different filaments too.
Yeah.
You got 3D. You got, and this is what kind of boggles the mind. This is why we're getting to this, and you'll kind of hear this come up. You got these Delta printers out there that are printing in nylon. And they're printing unenclosed without warping. Same thing with ABS.
Which is impressive.
Without warping, which is the one thing that, kind of, boggles the mind because you can't really print without warping.
Yeah,
on some printers.
It's like relying on a few like key points. Like your cooling is one thing that's going to deal with your warping. Most things are going to maintain temperature on the heat bed. That's not going to be a problem. But you think about, heat creep on the hot end. You think about elephant foot for the heat bed. Like, there's a whole bunch of topics that are issues that could arise when you do a taller print, like on the Delta printer. And the fact that it can go, like, print a full-size sword or something like that, incredible. But when you compare that to, like, what an Ender 3 Pro would do, or even just a Prusa Mark III, like, would do out of the box, they need the cooling. They need that. Otherwise, you're going to have, bed adhesion problems. Mm-hmm. You're going to have layer shifts. Like, it's going to introduce a whole host of problems. So it's crazy to me. I mean, we kind of harp on the Delta printer for being like a workhorse. It is very big It is unruly. It is a big clunky industrial type device. So it's cool and it's how its system works. And it definitely it puts its money where its mouth is. But we're talking about. I don't know how many people have a Delta printer in their home.
Yeah, if you do, send us a message.
That's really cool.
With a video on it or something, or send it to us. You can send it to us via email, or if you're on Twitter, send it to Vulcan Tech on Twitter, and we'll see it. It's that's something that we're kind of interested in. It's like if you have this type of technology, let's talk about it.
Yeah, because that's one of the things we talked about one of the other past episodes where we were talking. Levels of the 3D printing, like beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert.
Delta's a whole another bag.
Delta's one of those ones that is like you're probably not going to step into a Delta off the rip. You're going to have some problem. If you start off with it, more power to you. You're going to probably have it thrown away in the next couple weeks because it's not going to work. And
the thing is, I think that speaking of Deltas, and I know this is going in the enclosure topic. But the thing is because, and this is how it all ties in, because of the different types of materials that it can print.
Yeah.
But the big thing is I think the Delta is a unicorn. It's I hate to say it's a unicorn between the people that we associate with. I don't think we associate with anybody within our close knit group of people who do 3D printing.
Yeah.
Mostly your family.
No.
And some friends from work. I don't think any of them have Delta printers.
No, they don't, and they really haven't stepped outside of the realm of your standard FDM printing, Prusas or Ender 3s. I mean, I kind of forced Jason to get I kind of gifted him the Chiron, so he has to do something with a large form factor, which would be nice to see because that's kind of what you're getting towards next is you have that average size consumer printer, and now you want to go large form factor if you need to print bigger things like I don't know, like a full size jack-o'-lantern for Halloween, and you don't have to worry about gluing the pieces together because it's all printed piece one size. So it's I know we're still all off topic of the enclosures, but these are things that as you're growing in the world of hobbyist computer or 3D printing. And growing with your knowledge of those things, you're going to start building things bigger, and then that is when this enclosure problem becomes more of an issue.
Yeah,
because that's the one. The Chiron was the one printer I was having the problem with what is it? The hot end going for too long because it needed to print for 50, 60 hours sometimes, and having an issue with the heat creep in the heat break on the print head, as well as the glass bed would lose temp a little bit too. So and it would fail my prints, and it would be 40 hours into a 60-hour print. And then when I got an enclosure and I tried to do a print, it printed the dragon fine. It printed all 4 dragons fine. So it was a noticeable difference. However, it was printing those before, so I mean honestly, it's hard to say that a nozzle switch or a hot end switch wouldn't have fixed it as well. Yeah. So, but I definitely think if you're talking grand scheme of things, depending on if you have a conventional one, I would say it's just a good idea to enclose it.
Yeah, and the thing is there's so many different ways and out there to enclose it. So it's like. How I kind of, it's like, and the thing is let's kind of approach this to, like a multi-way of doing this. Pretty much, we can walk down the filament aisle, and different filaments are going to require you to enclose. So I think let's kind of lay out the filaments that they need, that they're going to be working with, that require an enclosure, and then kind of work into how we enclose a printer. If it already comes with one, which is like your MakerBots, your Flash Forges, your Vorons, and stuff like that. Some of them already have an enclosure built onto the machine. So you're like your MakerBots, not your MakerBots, but
I would think
they're like the P1Ps and stuff like that.
Bamboo
Labs.
I would think in those cases, the developers and manufacturers of those printers have already said, "Oh, we're not going to give you a choice. We're going to put this on here because we know." I mean, of course, we talked about it. Those are also advanced, I would say, printers.
Right, exactly.
And they know that you're going to want to try to tinker and you're going to want to try to drive.
Engineering level printers.
Yeah, they know that these are going to be prototypes and grown and built on, and in a lot of cases, those companies take those mods and those improvements to heart, and they make them part of the next version.
It's like the who was it? They made the kids version of the printers. All the kids versions of the printers are enclosed. So the safety factor.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
And then Dremel. Dremel came out of that 3D printer.
Really?
Yeah, and it's enclosed.
I was gonna say, I feel like they just made one where it's like, yeah, just put a Dremel in the middle here, and we got you.
It's a full-blown 3D printer.
Everything you need.
So, that's the thing. It's a full-blown 3D printer.
That's pretty impressive.
It's insane.
Yeah,
and you used to buy it at Lowe's. Like they would sell them at Lowe's along with the filament. Wow. And like you'd get them at like you could buy their filament at the Joann Fabrics and stuff like that, because Joann Fabrics used to sell filament all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy because now it's hard to get filament. You gotta order it, or you gotta specially get it
Amazon.
Delivered. But that drives up the price. Or if you get it on AliExpress or something like that, it's nice and cheap, but it's gonna take God knows how long to get here.
Right.
So,
and that also goes into the types of filament that we're dealing with here. As in a PLA, you're really not going to enclose. I wouldn't think.
I think it's one of the most it's one of the most forgiving, I would say, to print just out of the box. Mm-hmm. If you're going to enclose it, it's too susceptible to heat, in my opinion. Yeah. Because your print bed is 60 degrees Celsius. And your hot end is 220. If your enclosure is small enough, it's gonna heat that chamber to 60, and everything is gonna be kind of mushy. You think about like clay, like a clay feeling, like dough and stuff like that, Play-Doh or something like that. Yeah. And in those cases, if you have any layer, it's gonna make your elephant foot like that much worse, and your hot end is just gonna slice through it like butter, and your print's ruined. So,
and with that, if you are printing PLA in an enclosure, open the doors.
Yeah.
Because let the heat out.
Turn your parts cooling fan on too.
Yeah, and that's if you're dealing with a regular printer, that's really not something you're too worried about.
No, especially with PLA, you're not. It's not.
Yeah, it's a beginner filament. It's great to learn on. You can fail as many times as you want to, and you're not going to break the bank. Mm-hmm. Now, you start getting into like a PETG type of filament situation, where there's two different schools of thought to that though. PETG is notoriously terrible adhesion to get it to stick. However, once it sticks, it's like Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
Or the spray that girl sprayed in her hair. And
No, that was Gorilla Glue spray. Yeah. That was Gorilla Glue spray. Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah, please don't. If you do, send us the pictures. We'll laugh at you.
You should go see a doctor first.
yeah, definitely do that.
You have to shave all your hair off.
Right, and you're walking around looking like freaking, what is it, Jabba the Hutt, freaking hairy hands.
Yeah, thanks. Don't do it. Don't do
just don't do it. But the thing is like, we say that because if you put PETG on a flat surface, it's going to stick like Jesus. And I've had that same problem. I will admit that I've destroyed a bed before. Because of that. Yeah. I've kind of hurt this other one, but
you think that it's like possibly you're like, maybe it's my Z offset. I'm gonna get a little bit closer. I'll adjust the E steps.
Yeah.
I'll get that bed a little bit closer, and then next thing you know, your nozzle's digging your way at your bed.
Yep, had that happen.
Yeah. Too far.
But the thing is PETG is one of those where it's like, okay, cool. And all it really is PETG is PET with glycerin added. So the thing is, if you think about that, whenever you print, it's not like PLA, which is an acid. Was it polylactic acid or something like that?
Something like that.
That stuff you have to clean in between prints.
Yeah.
Same thing with PETG, but not as much.
Yeah. Well, see, and if you're switching back and forth, it's that film that you worry about, because that's why you keep the alcohol handy, because it creates this oil that's colorless, and what that does is it makes sure that your PETG is not going to stick. Yeah. So, or whatever other filament for that matter is going to stick, and so it's the same thing with PETG. I also think about what is the material of your bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I know we're talking major point is why enclose or not enclose, but if I enclose with a glass bed, that glass is going to maintain. It's thicker than your PEI or your silicone, whatever, so it's going to maintain that temperature. It's going to make it much hotter, much quicker, or longer last. So, PETG glass. PETG almost will never come off of glass. That's why you use activators. Yeah, that's why you use activators like hairspray or like a glue stick, or you put it on the upside down tape. Yeah. Those are the reasons for those. Like, just want to kind of get rid of the misconception that putting tape down doesn't mean you're trying to, glue or like print to the glue side of the tape just to get it to stay. No, the point is that it comes off the bed easier.
Yeah, it protects your print.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah, because it's going to lay down on that other material, and that's the same way why we talked about the hangbot that connects to the corners of your room, and you just lay down a piece of cardboard. I mean, it's very important what your print bed is.
Yeah.
Because I would rather not enclose a glass bed, and I would a silicone or maybe like a PEI spring steel.
Yeah, I'd be afraid of the shatter.
Yeah.
And the thing is with that, that's where there's two schools of thought with PETG. There's one thought that says, okay, cool, I can enclose this darn thing. Because I'm printing close to the same temperature I'm printing ABS. But then there's things saying, well, if I do this, never for the life of me going to get this thing off the bed. But then there's, I can...
Shouldn't have to use a chisel to get a print off a bed.
Right. But the thing about PETG... And this is why I like it, and this is why I started with it. Bad career move. Is the fact that you can print on any printer.
Yeah.
Any printer that you can print PLA on, you can print PETG.
Yeah.
And so you can learn how to get into engineering style filaments without having to worry about it.
It's a natural progression.
Right. And then speaking of that, then we jump into, everybody's, favorite cousin, ABS.
ABS or ASA.
Yeah, or ASA. You're talking about styrenes at this point.
Those. Oh man, they're just so much better with the heat resistance and like PLA. If anyone listening has ever worked with it, probably would know it's pretty brittle.
Yeah. Pretty
susceptible to splitting along the layer lines. PETG a little bit less so, a little bit more durability. Yeah. But ABS. Those are the things that I would throw outside. That'll be like that'll take UV rays like 9 times out of 10 is gonna last. So, that's the goal for me to print like standard utility items is ABS. ASA is very similar, higher temperature.
That's VOCs.
The threshold as well. It can withstand higher temperatures. So, for those though, I would say enclosure required.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, but we can play devil's advocate on this. But there are some people out there that are just freaks of nature that have figured out how to print ABS or ASA without an enclosure, which some people figured out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Some don't. But the thing is your typical Ender series of printers, which that's what everybody starts with most of the time, is already pre-programmed to run ABS.
It comes most. It does. It says PLA, PETG, ABS. Those are going to be your standard start, and it's a good ramp up. Honestly, I would say that's probably what a standard person trying to get into 3D printing should do is ramp up with those three. And I would say TPU is not something that you should try to throw in until a little bit later, unless absolutely necessary, because TPU, much like PETG, is like it's like
oilery.
Like a molasses. Like it wants to stick more than it should, and then like it's just confusing on the side. You'd have to learn more about how the material reacts to cooling because it's supposed to flex.
And the thing is with that kind of makes me laugh because I saw something the other day about foaming TPU.
Foaming?
Yeah, foaming.
What do you mean?
Like expanding.
Like
as it cools, it expands. Or as it extrudes, it expands.
Like in a lattice or something like that, right?
It's like a foam.
Yeah. That's
So, and you can buy it as a regular roll, so it's not like it's anything extraordinary. But the thing is about that, it prevents you having to run dual gear extruders.
Okay.
And TPU can be printed without an enclosure.
Yeah.
And but now I'm going to go back to ABS real quick, because you have the guys who are running like ABS Plus and stuff like that don't require enclosures. They've kind of re-engineered that filament to not require an enclosure, which it's kind of like, okay, so since it is ABS, technically by definition and by chemical composition, do I run an enclosure or not?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, ABS when you get into the pluses, ABS Plus, PLA Plus, PETG Plus, all those things, it's harder and harder to know or expect or predict, I guess, how it's the filament's gonna react. You just have to do it. You have to trial and error it out.
Right.
Unless you're the ones who developed the filaments yourselves, then you would know, because one PLA Plus is not the same as the next PLA Plus on a different brand. So it's the same reason that we look at it on when you're buying your filaments anywhere. It says dimensional accuracy plus or minus 0.02 millimeter. You see 0.03, you see 0.01. So all those things kind of I take into account with what am I printing?
Yeah.
And that also is a piece that you should think about if you're like, should I enclose it? What are you printing?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right? Are you printing a button? Yeah, honestly, is it going to hurt it?
Right.
Are you printing something that doesn't need to be precise? Then send it. It's fine. Are you printing something that articulates? You might need one.
Yeah.
You might need to be able to control that temperature. In some filaments are more forgiving than others, but I would like PLA Plus, PETG Plus, ABS Plus. So most of those are going to be geared towards they have a goal, so they're probably going to be more forgiving in when they're printing it. And a lot of people are trying to go to industrial printing, so they want it to be able to take a little bit more wear and tear, or be a little bit rougher. Maybe the temperature is not exactly the temperature it likes. So, but at the end of the day, it gets to that the glass transition temperature for when it's laying down on the bed and laying its levels down. And if that temperature fluctuates too much, you start seeing the salmon skidding or the layer shifts on your print, especially if it's a taller print.
And if you think about it, you start dealing with filaments that have something impregnated them, like carbon fiber or PLA or
it adds new
PETG
caveats
or stuff like that. And that just completely screws the pooch on that idea.
Yeah.
But the thing is kind of like the offshoot of that. Then the thing is if you guys think about this, anything above ABS. So when we start getting nylons, polycarbonates.
Polycarbonate's a good one.
The world of engineering filaments, those all require an enclosure. Because you print at such a high heat that they require an enclosure. But the thing is about also having an enclosure in a smaller scale printer. Mind you, I'm building my first printer with a enclosure now. But the kind of the bonus of that is being able to use your enclosure as a filament dryer.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you
print a couple offsets. You set your filament down on top of it, stack it in there, turn the printer on for a little bit, and let it dry itself out.
And you have because that's also an issue that most people don't realize. If your print is stringing a lot and you didn't change anything, but maybe your filament's a little older, it's because you got water in it, some moisture in it, and you need a filament dryer. Yep. Whether it's a repurposed food dehydrator or, it's kind of sketchy, but you can use the oven, just very low temperature.
If you're sniffing other, will be really, really, really mad.
Yeah, I think that it's dangerous to do that because that's also where you're eating. You put your food there too, so I wouldn't want plastic fumes or anything like that.
Don't use your toaster.
Yeah, I prefer that you wouldn't use it, but it is possible.
Yeah,
I would say get a dry box or get a cheap food dehydrator. You can 3D print the sides. It doesn't have to be ABS. It could be PETG, minor PETG, and it lets me. I dry my spool out before I use it. Every time.
It's either that or get a one of the clear boxes. Put a piece of print. If you're really printing something at that point, print something that will hold a dowel rod or a piece of PVC. Slide the filament in there and throw a bunch of the silica packets down at the bottom. It's going to have the same effect.
Yep, exactly.
So if you're tight on a budget, use a bucket. throw it in there, make sure it's got a lid, put some silica packets in there, make sure it's got some standoff so it doesn't sit in the moisture down at the bottom.
Yep.
And, let it go.
Yeah, then you're good.
You don't have to heat it up. You can set it, if you live in a hot climate.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be heat.
It works by its own.
Yeah, it needs to be, the moisture needs to be removed. Shoot, even, it's terrible if you work in the place where you're printing, I don't suggest it. But if it's in its own room and you can kind of keep it closed and it's already, that room's controlled, a dehumidifier in the room.
Yeah.
That helps too. So there's a whole bunch of different ways, but it's about, if you're thinking about just enclosing it, it's probably cheaper to enclose it than try to do all the other steps that we're trying to do, all the other hoops that you want to jump through. So I would just say, like, that's in that case, I would still say, yeah, you should.
Yeah, that, and if you're going to do it in a bucket, putting the bucket stick out in the garage.
Yeah, exactly.
If you live in the, from what some of my, what some of our listeners looks like their locations, you're in the Eastern Hemisphere, guys. Y'all, it gets hot.
Yeah.
Okay. It's real hot, based on where some of y'all are at. Like, oh, Jesus. Yeah. But the thing is you have enough heat there to set it outside in a bucket with a little bit of freaking stuff in there and let it go.
Yeah.
And then pull it back in before it turns into goo.
Yeah. No direct sunlight.
Right.
I think
it's it's like, I know we got some listeners that are coming from from India and stuff like that. Y'all, if you put your filament outside and it's about the heat from the surface of the sun, back off a little bit.
Yeah, you can
bring the damn thing back inside.
You gotta melt it.
So believe me, we're here in the States and it does get that hot here, and we'll leave it out in the garage for a few minutes and then it's okay, it's done. So some of y'all are more colder climates than others. Some are more tropical. Don't do that. If you're gonna put your filament outside, do not do that in a tropical environment. Because you're gonna get even more wet.
Yeah.
But you just poking a little bit of fun, but having a good time. And if y'all have an interesting way of a filament dryer, send it to us.
Yeah.
We'll try it. We got plenty of, I guess you can say, junk filament lying around, or half-used rolls of filament because we tried something, we didn't like it. Yeah. But and we're willing to make a whole entire YouTube video on that and give you credit for it. I'd love to try it. Honestly.
I'm even curious at, like, if I would, like, so right out of the box, by the filament three times, identical filament, one as a control, one dried, and the other one dropped in a bucket of water. Yeah. And then wiped off and trying to print with it and see what a benchy would look like on each.
I'd like to see what happens when you throw one of these spools into a vacuum chamber to pull all the fluid out of it.
Exactly.
If you think about it, water evaporates at a certain pressure.
Because these are all the things that we're talking about. Is all the things, moisture is the point of it. So, like, yeah, why not?
Yeah. Like you take when you dunk it in water, you throw it in a pressure chamber, and you see what happens. The water's going to boil off.
Yeah.
So, but if y'all have any different way, we're going to make a YouTube video eventually on that. We promise, believe me. We'll get like the kilogram spools. Nothing, or the 750 gram spools.
Yeah.
But
not the big ones.
Right. But y'all, if you have an interesting way of drying your filament before you use it, send it to us. Send it to us on Twitter, send it to us on Instagram, send it to us someplace. Let us know what you're doing, because we would love to try something, maybe show it off a little bit for you and get you some credit for it, and if anything, if we really like the idea and we do it on a YouTube video or something like that, we'll do a call in with you, stuff like that. We'll send you an invite on Teams or something like that, or Google Chat or whatever the heck you want to use.
We'll talk about it.
And we'll talk about it. We'll talk about how you came up with the idea, so you can get a little bit of credit for it. And if you're, if you're marketing that type of stuff, let us know, and, we can see if we can help you out.
Yeah.
Not saying we got the world's, biggest amount of followers, but, we can help you out. We're willing to do that. Y'all help us out, we'll help you out.
One more person talking about it is another person that's kind of, getting the word out. So
right.
It just grows. It's exponential. It's a domino effect.
Right. And that's why we ask y'all to, share the content if you can, get the word out there and, help us out. But, now we're kind of going on the path of, if we're talking about, we've made it through the decision of, am I going to enclose or not enclose? That kind of rotates into how to enclose.
Yeah. What do I use? Like,
How do I do this? Do I use it with PVC pipe and shower curtain? Do I use it with angle iron and a welder and a little bit of freaking ingenuity with some plexiglass?
Or am I using tarp and duct tape?
There's another way of doing it.
It's not. There are people out there that just have a tent, like that has the same material that you would have like a safety, like a fire blanket.
Yep.
And it's on the inside of that. Like, that's as simple as it's got to be.
Yeah. Or a plastic, or not literally a plastic line, but a like a cardboard box with a blanket thrown over the top of it. Mm-hmm. It's going to hold the heat. Mm-hmm. But if you're using Octoprint and you put a camera in there, put a light,
you won't see anything.
It'll be a little dark. But that's the thing. It's it's you can make an enclosure out of darn near anything. And there's the kits all over the place. Creality's got with the bag.
Yeah, the Creality has one that you can just buy straight out that you just put your Ender 3 in.
And you zip it up.
You just zip it up like a tent. It's like it's the most plug and play you can get. And then you think about if you go on any place like Thingiverse. I mean, we look at stuff that have developers that work on like Voron and stuff like that, and it's like built in. But like on Thingiverse, to me, this is probably where a lot of the ideas started for those some of those like handmade, custom made, open source
the rep printers,
things like that. But they have the IKEA lac table is what most people have. They buy $15 end table from IKEA, buy 3 of them, you stack them, and they actually have in the frames for the risers are the spots for you to drill in your acrylic.
Mm-hmm. And y'all that live in Europe, you probably got an IKEA probably every couple square miles.
Yeah.
So you can easily find lac tables.
They deliver.
Yeah, they do deliver. And from the looks of the maps and stuff like that, some of y'all are in the delivery zone. Oh, yeah. I know we are. Oh, yeah. I just don't like fighting with stuff that comes out of a box like that.
Yeah, then you're going to have like an extra like 5 of each, and you're like, why do I have so many? Did I miss something?
and the thing is, if you're married, we also call that the store that, well, we're going to test your marriage real quick. Yeah. How much stuff can you get out of saying no? So it's, kind of... Now, I'm going to say this. I'll tell you one good thing about IKEA is if you're dating somebody. You take somebody to IKEA, then you go home and you put it together. If you can survive putting it together, she's a keeper.
Learn the patience. Yeah. It's not... most things are easy, but it just, I've talked to many a mechanic. They're one broken bolt away from a 15-minute job being a 3-hour job.
Right.
And that gets the most frustrating.
If you get flustered hanging a TV, don't go to IKEA.
Yeah, no.
But the thing is, I've also seen the big acrylic boxes. Have you seen those? Where you actually buy, pretty much you tell them what printer you have, and they have an entire acrylic case.
And they make it, and you just put it on top.
You slide down on top of it, it's got a little door.
That's pretty cool.
I think it's got 2 doors, one for the filament line side, and then one for the actual door itself it sits in.
There you go.
Some of them I've seen for like Prussias, some of them I've seen for Enders.
Prefabs and things like that.
Yeah, they're like prefabs. So they ship it to you in a box. So it's an enclosure in a box, which is another good way. If you have money to spend, there you go. If not,
yeah.
DIY, man.
Let's say some of the printers come with it.
Yeah.
Like you look at Form Labs. I mean, I know that's a resin printer, but like we can take the little quick look over and say, why are all resin printers enclosed? Well, mostly because of the chemicals and the fumes. But on the same coin is like, well, they need to control light. I mean, there was something that we saw earlier today, electron beam, which was like crazy that I didn't know you could print like that. But it needs to be enclosed because it's dangerous if not.
Right.
So not like ABS, if you print it without an enclosure, I wouldn't say it's dangerous. I would say maybe to your print or maybe to what you're trying to make, it might be dangerous. You might lose some quality, but not like immediately life-threatening. Resin, probably life-threatening. Your lungs are going to feel it if you don't take precaution.
And the thing is, it's like, building an enclosure is a little easier than most people give it out to be. Because most of the stuff that you can find at the hardware store. Most of the stuff you can find at home. If you have an old shower curtain, you've gone and done a remodel, recently, and you have shower curtains. Go to the store, buy PVC or tarp. Go to the store, buy PVC pipes, And you can take those PVC pipes and make a square out of it. All this is
Mm-hmm.
a couple uprights, and you make a box that goes over it. Take the tarp and run it around the outside of it, and zip tie it into spots.
Yeah, and you're done.
And that's it. Use 550 cord, rope, hemp line, banana leaves if you really want to do. Anything that you can make shoelaces. So anything you can use to make a rope out of, you can seal that up, and guess what? Now you have an enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have to be pretty to work.
No, it just has to be. It's the same. It's the same thing whenever you look at a house that's like half done and it's got the insulation up.
Yeah.
So you see the insulation's up, but maybe the drywall's not up yet. It's still going to hold your temperature.
Right.
That's what the insulation is supposed to be doing.
And the perfect example of if it's ugly, it works. Is the Ford.
You can't see it, but I'm raising my own hand. No.
No, the thing, what is it? The Pontiac Fiero.
Oh man.
Engine in the back, ugly as sin, but it still worked. Or the better known as the Ford Pinto, which that didn't really work. It would get hit in the rear and explode.
What is it?
So
Isuzu.
Yeah, the Isuzu pickups.
They made and the engine's underneath the chair in the front, and I remember sitting on that in the Philippines when we were riding around, and it's like, you guys have heated seat warmers or something? Why is it getting hot in here?
Yeah, it's they're ugly as sin, but you know what? They work.
Yeah. It works.
So don't be like, oh, I need to have the perfect enclosure for my stuff to work. No, that could be ugly as sin. And
just keep an eye on your temperature sensors.
Yeah.
And this is why we always encourage Clipper, because like you can better watch those.
Yeah. Put an extra thermistor in there.
Yeah, temperature changes, and you can set up your MQTT, and you can have alerts. You can have the Telegram bot send you, hey, alert, temperature out of specification, but you can also set it up to where it doesn't fail.
Yeah.
It just alerts you. And you have a warning and a critical. There's so much more customization that you can.
Thanks for the gentle reminder. I got to send you some code.
Yeah, you got them. I need to get those.
Completely forgot.
You can even set up. Yeah, and that even reminds me. You can set up a heater profile to where it shows your chamber temperature,
yep.
your hot end, your bed, your MCU, your Raspberry Pi. You can look at all your temperatures of everything and then monitor it that way. So it's
like I ordered an additional thermistor. To once I get the enclosure finished, I'm going to run into the enclosure so I can get the temperature of my enclosure.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see, what's going on in there. So I'm not having to put up a little thing that tells me what the ongoing temperature is.
You get it to send those to you whenever it gets outside. You set up like monitoring for critical and warnings, and there you go. Now you've not only created an enclosure that's going to make your print safe, it's going to keep you safe, so when something fails, it's going to save you time, it's going to save you money.
Yep.
Man, I feel like we've been preaching Clipper for a while, though.
We have been, but the thing is
there's a reason.
Exactly, there is a reason for Clipper. If you are going to run an enclosed printer, please go to a version thereof Clipper.
Well, if
Fluid,
you do Octopi,
Mainsail.
Octopi works too.
Octopi, if you want to stick with your or Octoprint, if you want to stick with your current firmware. For example, like if you have an Ender and you just like the Marlin firmware, you like doing your thing, set up Octoprint. Octoprint will help you out. They'll take care. They'll track all that stuff for you. You don't have to go to a new firmware. There's nothing to be scared of. You can try it that way. And if you have any experience with that, definitely help your fellow listeners out by explaining to them kind of what the benefits are, if they've never gone that route, or if they're new to the 3D printing hobby, or the 3D printing workforce, because we're seeing a lot more 3D printer workforces popping up, and more 3D printing, evolution, and I think that's kind of something we'll hit later. I think we're seeing a lot of stuff now where we can have an entire episode on 3D print evolution. And I think that's definitely one of our episodes later on is talking about that. Pretty much as we also prepare to head to possibly heavily likely looking like we're going to head to a trade show. Go out there and take a look and kind of get some new ideas and kind of talk to some people and get some stuff for the YouTube channel. Get you all involved in that. We'll be doing, if we do go, which it is looking highly likely, there would be doing, at least some live streaming a little bit during that time. Maybe like an aftershock, or we may do something, or we may do something in the morning before we go to the show. The show starts at 9. We'll do something at 8. Like, hey, let's have coffee real quick and let's kind of talk about what we want to accomplish that day. Yeah. And then we kind of come back, that afternoon, and we have another. We have a maybe not an adult beverage because we don't get banned off of YouTube. Yeah. But a water or another cup of coffee, and we kind of talk through things. What did we see? What kind of caught our eyes for that day?
Yeah, it's cool. Just the number of vendors or the number of companies there, Slice Engineering, Form Labs, Creality, Prusa, like all those big names are going to be there. So.
Yeah, and the name of the show is the Rapid TCT event. Yeah. If y'all go to that, if you're in the industry and you go to that, send us a message. Let us know you're going to be there. We will look for you. If anything, we can have a conversation. Have a cup of coffee after the show's over. Yeah. Or, go out and grab a bite to eat, and, just have a conversation about, what is going on, and what is the future of 3D printing, and stuff like that. And, we may do an episode of the podcast with you. Yeah. We'll bring all the gear with us, just in case we want to have a conversation with somebody, and, we kind of go from there,
because why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's bringing more information to them.
Yeah.
So,
it's pretty exciting.
Exactly. And, I think that, for us, it's, next step in the right evolution.
Yeah.
But also, that here nor there is we're going to, be able to look and see what's actually being enclosed and what's not being enclosed. And for, what reason.
Yeah. Yeah, because everything's going to be solving a different problem. And
exactly.
They're all going to be looking to bring a solution to the table that hasn't been made before. And, like, how can we bring innovation to the forefront or teach anybody about innovation if we're not looking at it too? So
right, exactly. If we're not willing to sacrifice a little bit of cash, we're gonna have a little bit of fun. But I think that's gonna to bring us to the end for tonight. I think we've answered the question of to enclose or not to enclose.
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah, most of the time is yes. You too?
Yeah.
Well. So we start getting that way. But the thing is I want to say, like we've been kind of iterating here in the past few minutes, is we want to say thank you. We're seeing some of y'all pop up from all over the world, and I couldn't tell you how happy that makes me. That means at least we're reaching y'all. We're having a little bit of fun with it. Mm-hmm. We want y'all to have fun with us. We want y'all to enjoy it. That's why I was saying the guys from India. I've seen you on there a few times. The guys from Singapore. We keep seeing y'all. Make yourself known on some of the socials. Let us know who you are. And we're more than happy to have a conversation with you if you want to talk off. Same thing with the rest of y'all. Because we want to see how things are done in other places and around the globe. And if that's something that we want to do on a live stream one day, hey, let's do it. I got no problem with that. We'll do it on YouTube live stream and we'll have a conversation and kind of get an idea of 3D printing across the globe and kind of whatever else is involved in. So, but that's something that we can talk about later.
Yeah.
But the big thing is thank you. Seeing where y'all are at and where you're coming from and stuff like that. It's it's I guess you can say makes it worth it to kind of hit that demographic.
It's a good feeling.
Across the world, knowing that we're not just stuck to our own little part of the world here. Mm-hmm. We're being heard by more than just the people at work that tell us to pretty much shut up.
Yeah, because they're tired of hearing us talk about 3D printing. But yeah, no, I mean, it's the same thing from my side. I definitely agree. I like it's nice to have listening ears. People interested in it. It's we strive to bring the knowledge to everybody. So why would we want to limit who's listening to? So, but yeah, I mean it's crazy that you got was it only a few weeks ago past 1,000.
Yep.
And that's first of many milestones I would expect. So,
oh yeah,
and that's not us listening, right? We can't get those numbers. We can't fake that. That's other people listening. So we definitely are very appreciative in those aspects. As far as maybe a challenge for the week, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say enclose something that you love. No, I'm just kidding. That's a terrible.
Yeah, please don't do that. We'll go to jail for that.
No, but let's like. Yeah, it's. Yeah, no, that's a cage. That's a prison. Don't do that. But no, yeah. See if you've got a 3D printer, do some investigation about making an enclosure for it. See how easy it is. Try some prints on an enclosure. The thing that we talked about earlier, with the moisture and the printing of those things, that's a project we're probably going to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds like really fun. And if we don't want to post a video on it, we'll talk about it on a podcast or something like that. But that sounds like something that we should do. And if you have any ideas or thoughts on that, and some input, maybe some types of filament we should try. I was just going to say PLA, PET-G. We'll do maybe 3 rolls of each and try them out. Because that's usually what people are getting. Like, we can try it, and if you want to see more, we'll do more later on. So, but yeah, no, that and learn something new every day.
Yeah, hit us up on Twitter. Send us what you got. How you built your dry box, or how you did your enclosure. We'd love to see it.
Oh yeah.
And tell us kind of how y'all are doing. 3D printing across the globe. We kind of want to know that. So, but all right, y'all. We appreciate it. We thank you. And, we'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to the Tech at Lunch podcast, where we hope you learned something about tech during your break or during your lunchtime. If you did, please give us a follow to prevent missing future episodes. If you have any ideas or something you want to hear or learn about, please send us a show idea to podcast@vulcanara.com. Hope you have a good rest of the day and continue learning.